1 Samuel chapter 18, verse 1 through 4. And then Psalms 133, 1. 1 Samuel 18, 1 through 4. First Samuel chapter 18, 1 through 4. And it said, and when he had finished speaking to Saul, the soul of Jonathan was knit to the soul of David. And Jonathan loved him as his own soul. Saul took him that day and would not let him go home to his father's house anymore. Then Jonathan and David made a covenant because he loved him as his own soul. And Jonathan took off the robe that was on him and gave it to David with his armor and even to his sword and bow and his belt. So David went out wherever Saul sent him and behaved wisely. And Saul set him over the men of war, and he was accepted in the sight of the people, and also in the sight of Saul's servants. It's just told with me to write Psalms 133. 133. We will try to connect this together. And let y'all get out. And it reads, behold how good and pleasant it is for brethren, I'm going to add sisterin, to dwell together in unity. How good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. For the next few minutes, I want to talk about you need a killer for a friend. You need a killer for a friend. As I began to read, and I wanted to put a strong emphasis on this text today, this is to get some meat. And I said, I want to take off wigs, new shoes and girdles, and I want to talk about a killer of a friend. I wanted us to be able to recognize and realize that if you're going to have a friend, you ought to make sure that your friend is a killer of giants. Deshaun, if you're going to have a friend, you ought to make sure that your friendship, kinship, and fellowship is connected to someone that can do the three things that I'm going to recommend. Be able to provide for you, protect you, and produce. I've discovered that I read in the Bible that there are a lot of kinships, friendships, and fellowships. But they just pass and they go. Because people have not had a covenant relationship, didn't have strong stick-to-itness, steadfastness in their friendship. People have grown up in the same neighborhood, slept in the same bed. We used to be able to do that. Borrowed each one's gas card, or when we were younger at siblings, we used to chew each other's bow gum and share. You remember that? Your mom used to give you one piece and take it all the way down. It wasn't because we was broke. It's because she wanted us to understand that we were brothers and sisters. And there's some some things that we gonna have to share. I remember my sister, she used to get her a Pepsi Cola, a real nice little big bottle. I wanted the bottle and she wanted the Pepsi. And one day we were in my mom's Cadillac in the back seat. And we got to the corner. And then I got real thirsty. And she had put her lips all across the top of the bottle. And I was about to regurgitate. Because I knew what my mother was going to say. If you want some soda water. See, they called it soda water then. They didn't call it a salt drinking beverage. So I raised my hand. And I said, Mom, I'd like to make a special request. And I was a little smart kid. And she said, what is that, Mr. Grimm? And I said, I would like to make a request that my sister get her lips off of this Pepsi. Because I've got a drink about to come on. And she said, Kathy, she said, yes, ma'am. Can you take this bottle and put it in your brother's face and tell him to turn it all the way up as much as the fashion is good? And I said, can I have a napkin? She said, no. I want you to know that whatever she got, you gonna give it. And I never forgot that. Sometime behind my children, when they were under 18, we used to share the same Pepsi Cola. Okay. All right. When they turned 18, I'm telling I ain't thirsty. But what we discovered in sharing was that we were knitted together. And we were woven together, that whatever was good for one was good for the other. Your young lady, I had 3 sisters. And they all were about the same size. You know what to say. Some of you old people know what I'm talking about. My sister had a slip. And my other sister didn't have one. That's when they wore slips. My mother was saving and in here. And I see my sister undressed without undressing. She went up to the top because it had to be a full slip. But they had the decoration up here, y'all opened the door. And somehow she tucked her hand in and took her hand out. And then she pulled something on the side, I don't know what it was. I guess it was the lock my mother had on or something. And she took her arm and put it in, and she pulled it out. And we looked on the ground. And then she stepped out. And then my other sister took it and put it. And somehow she got it to go all the way up. And she pulled it out. I don't know how she did it. But before we got where we were going, she had on my sister's slip. And I discovered that sometimes even if the size ain't right, that there was an adjustment on So it lets me know that there are some relationships, some friendships that we are to be inducted in that allow us to be able to share some commonality, allow us to better understand each other. So when I looked at this, I looked at Jonathan. Jonathan was Saul's, his son. And then when I looked at David, David was Jesse's son. Matter of fact, when you read in chapter 7 in 1 Samuel, we discovered that he was over there and he was talking to the big mouth Philistines and Philistines, some people say, and there was a man by the name of Goliath. And if you do the history on Goliath, we discovered that Goliath was 9 feet tall, 9 inches. He walked around with armors on, he had helmets on, he had brass, his feet were covered and all this stuff. And he went out to them and he said to them, fast forward, he went out to them and he said to them, you know what I want you to do? We're going to have a challenge musician. David was a nobody in the place of somebody that can help anybody if you want to kill a giant. So you better be careful who you sit next to. It might be a giant. David used to work for the king. He was tickling the ivory. He was in there playing string instruments. The Bible said after David went down there, and he said, "You sit down for life. We're going to." David said, "I'm not here. Matter of fact, give me my own stuff. Let me be a